I don't know about you, but I'm still riding high from the DNC, DJ Cassidy, still playing in every corner of my mind while I clear out all those excess balloons. For a liberal coastal elite cynic, such as myself, the DNC did pretty much exactly what it needed to do. Kamala Harris cannot be everything for everyone, but she's trying pretty hard to show that she will at least try to be something for so many, which is why I have some serious choice words for undecided voters. What the hell? How? I just don't get it. My mind cannot comprehend seeing the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee and thinking, same, but how are they different? Oh my God. Traditionally, I have the least amount of patience with ambivalent, undecided voters. I can't help it. I think that they are drama queens who literally want a candidate to march up their driveway and hold their hand and personally give them a coupon for a Quiznos, and that would pretty much decide it. Look, enjoy being the belle of the ball for the next few months, swing voters. We are spending the GDP of a small nation for an exercise in brand identification to teach you Kamala Harris's name, because we all know that you're going to go in that booth and whimsically pull the lever for whoever's name you heard last. Or maybe more likely is that you're not undecided between the candidates. Again, how could you be? They are not even close, but you're undecided if you're going to bother voting at all. And to that I say, oh, how nice, how quaint. It must be nice not worrying that your freedoms or the freedoms of your loved ones or your neighbors aren't at risk of being taken away. How confident you must be that some element of your life might not be in danger if we don't elect Vice President Harris. And if that's true, don't vote for your own sake. Vote for the sake of someone you may not even know. Please. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is Jon Lovett, former Obama speechwriter and current host of Love It or Leave It and Pod Save America and co-founder of Crooked Media. Jon joined me live from the DNC, so take a listen and make good choices.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Listen, you're on Survivor now.
That's true. That's true.
Which, as you know, this podcast is largely about choices, and we are going to talk about that choice.
Happy to. I can absolutely talk about the choice.
I just got invited to go on Dancing with the Stars, and I said no. But I want to talk to somebody who said yes to reality show experience. Tell me what you can tell me. I know the NDA is insane. Did it live up to expectations? Can you just say that?
It was a fascinating and worthwhile experience. That's all that, but I will say, I will tell you about the decision to do it, which was, I had been watching Survivor for a long time. I watched the first season live as a kid, like I was about to turn 18. It aired like right as I was graduating high school, and I loved it, and I was hooked on it, rediscovered it in the last couple of years, caught up, and there was something about the challenge of it and the fact that like you have no control over what happens that was interesting to me. And I'm like very proud of my career. I'm proud of where I've gotten to. And I get to say what I want when I want in studios whenever, like, I'm in this position where like I have gotten to have all this success, and yet I still carry around this fear of how I look, this fear of making a mistake, this desire to control how I'm perceived. And I was sick of it. And like I put a lot of my insecurities into how I look, and the idea of putting myself through this challenge in which I'd have to let go of that completely, truly let go of it completely, and know that like, whether it's the deprivation or the intense physical challenges or the social dynamics, that because it would be on camera, you can't just walk away. You have to finish what you've started. You sort of are binding yourself to the mast. And like, that was really interesting to me. The other part of it was, I knew, like, I've been paying attention, obviously, ferociously to the news since I was a teenager. And the idea that I would basically step outside of that in the spring before this election and have a chance to, like, disappear into this completely alien, isolated experience was exciting. And then Survivor is democracy. It is a group of people forced to be together, set against each other by the rules, finding a way to work together, and deciding which one of them deserves to go all the way, right? It's a vote. Right. Every episode ends with a vote. Yeah. And I just like the idea of being part of that in the run-up to this election and getting to talk to people as it airs or in the run-up to it airing about like why we like Survivor. And we like Survivor because it's a social experiment, yes, in like hunger and competition, but also in like democracy.
Your answer checked all my goddamn boxes today. Okay. And like, I was actually literally thinking about this this morning, just in my own life. It was so stupid, but it's like, oh, I love it when someone else is in charge. Like, I love just to surrender to something. And it's kind of, right? Like in your position, it's kind of rare that you have to surrender yourself completely to something.
It's also like when I start thinking about doing it, I don't think it's a coincidence that I had like recently turned 40 and decided, look, I think people can do their midlife crisis however they want. This is how I'm choosing to do my midlife crisis.
And then a yellow Lamborghini. It's fine.
No, that's what's next. Absolutely.
You're in Chicago right now?
In Chicago.
You are in Chicago.
I literally ate a personal-sized deep dish pizza before this recording.
Just thank you for doing that. Yeah. Just to power this recording with a deep dish.
Yep, with a lactate on the side, obviously.
Of course. I mean, that's a necessity. This is not going to air the week of the DNC. It's going to air after. But still, I want to know, what is your setup there? Are you the belle of the ball? Do you have a special
So Crooked, we have 4 walls made of curtains.
Oh God!
Next to the Newsmax booth.
No.
So it's not. It's. Listen, it's lovely. Team did it. We have a great studio set up, but we're there's a media area. You know, like the networks have their fancy booths inside the arena. We are in the kind of radio podcast lower rent section. We're in the podcast budget section. Not the TV budget section.
Okay. It used to be like Radio Row.
Yes,
where you would like years and years ago, you would go and there were just people with their tape recorders. And now it's it's better than that.
There's still radio, but then there's satellite radio. There's all the digital places. We're literally next to Newsmax.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, that's, you know what? There's a kinship there. And I think that there's reaching across the curtain for friendship and companionship. I watched a bunch of it last night. It was very hard to maintain my cool New York cynicism. It was pretty good.
So, first of all, it's worth remembering how different this convention feels than how we thought the convention was going to feel.
Yes.
Just a few weeks ago, first of all, it is amazing how much things have changed in the last 2 months.
Like, what the hell?
That debate was at the end of June.
Yeah.
It has not been 2 months. It has not been 2 months.
What? Wait, it hasn't been 2 months. It has felt like 5 years.
The debate, I believe that's right. I think the debate was the 26th or the 27th of June. So we are 2 months. It has been not even 2 months since that debate. And in between, so much has happened. But so there is this feeling, like, I think going into that convention, we were so worried about enthusiasm. We were so worried about unity. We were so kind of worried about how we were going to persuade people to turn out, how we were going to make this exciting. And everyone has come together. So there's this place called the CNN Grill. CNN has the grill.
Love the grill.
Love the grill. And you get a free hot dog and a pierogi and then run into like a million journalists. But some of whom you want to see. But I like the idea that like under the protection of the CNN Grill, the 5 Democratic families are meeting together to make peace. The Bernie Bros, the Biden or bust, the K-Hive, the anti-Trump Republicans, Dean Phillips, like everybody getting together and making peace. And so that like kind of enthusiasm is infectious. I will say like this is the first night, Joe Biden didn't take the stage until after prime time on the East Coast. They made that man stay up so late. Everybody's speeches were so long. And there's a real problem in Democratic politics that everyone has slowed down. This is just a pet peeve of mine, and maybe this is going to seem persnickety and like a small thing, but I think it's a big thing, which is at a time in which we know that people's attention spans are in the toilet. If you go on TikTok, it is a person telling a story side by side with someone making a cake, because just a person telling a story is too boring. You have to have something visual and stimulating on the side. Like that's the state of our attention spans. And speakers are speaking slower. They are speaking as if the mics aren't working. Like they're speaking just to the crowd, but not to television. They're waiting for the applause breaks to die down. They're interacting with the crowd. And all of it means that from television, it is interminable. And people are just not getting through these speeches. So every speech went incredibly long. The night got pushed really late. It's less exciting. AOC did an amazing job. AOC is like 10 out of 10, the pro. She is passionate. She is excited. She is working the room. The room is fully invested. She's making an argument and she's moving. She's moving. It is working for the audience and it's working for television. And like, everybody's got to pick up the pace.
I agree with you so hard. Like it's like move the video's good. Everything's great. Love it. Love the change. I like that we're excited against it. Great. But it is too much. Like I would not sit through the whole thing. It's much better to watch it the day after in little clips and stuff because like why? I agree.
Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris? Let's go. We got places to be. We got voters to talk to. Got ads to run.
Yep.
Got pizzas to eat.
We got 3 more days of this. Can we just tighten up the speaking just a bit, just a touch?
Are we going to elect the felon? Or are we going to elect the prosecutor? Like,
hold for
applause. Talking like that.
Hold
We're
for
talking
applause.
Like that. Let's keep it moving, people. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah. No, I am 100% with you. Wish that you could get in there and just edit the whole thing and just be like, I want to
take over the prompter. I want to speed it up. Speed it up.
Just crank it.
Speed it up. Because speeches are good. Like, it's not a criticism of the speeches. It's just like they have a great team there. It's like that everything is running. Everything is good. Like even the mess, it's all there. It's just like
half of it is pace. Half of it is half of anything is pace. Movies are all like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'm like, if you all talk faster, we can be out of here in an hour and a half. And it's the same story.
Give me 3 hours and somebody knows how to, move the dials. I'll cut 30 minutes out of Oppenheimer. You won't fucking miss it.
Oh, I'll cut an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Can I tell you something?
Please. I just can't. Yeah, please do.
This is my, what character you could just cut out of Oppenheimer and you wouldn't miss him?
Who?
Robert Downey Jr. I know he won an Oscar. I'm sorry. I don't know. What's he even doing in this movie? What's he doing here?
Care. No.
He's just the guy that's aware of what's going on. Get him out of there. It was a good performance, but I don't need it.
I go see things with my 8 teenagers and they go, and who was the Iron Man guy? Like they just go like, why was Iron Man in the movie? I'm like, that's a great, you know what? That's just a review of the movie.
Oppenheimer's making a bomb over 2 hours, and there's an hour of Robert Downey Jr. misconstruing a meeting. What am I doing here?
I don't get it. No, I want to talk to Christopher Nolan. You and I, sit him down. Yeah. This is an intervention at this point.
Yeah, okay. He doesn't text, he doesn't email, so we're going to have to write him a letter.
I definitely feel like, I don't know, this is going to air next week, but it's fine. Like on Monday, what's Donald Trump going to do to bring the attention back onto himself? Like, what's the Monday surprise? This is going to be nuts.
It's really interesting watching Donald Trump flail a bit. We talked about this a bit on Pod Save America. We've been talking about it, so I'm very confident that this dynamic will continue. Which is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing. You can tell that it's working. And there's some people that quibble with weird. Is it too negative? I don't agree with any of that.
No,
they are making Donald Trump seem unrelatable. And they're connecting his policies, which are, for the corporations and for the wealthy and for polluters and for the, the far right and extreme, with his personality. Same thing for Vance. And so Tim Walz gets up there and like, can you picture Donald Trump doing anything normal? Going to having a picnic, working a McFlurry machine? You can't. He's J.D. Vance. They just don't seem like the kind of people that do normal stuff. And it's really undermining their politics because their populism is fake and it really exposes it. And it makes them feel confident. It puts them on offense. It puts Trump and J.D. Vance on defense. And the flip side of that is Trump's strength is not coming up with nicknames. Trump's strength is throwing his opponents off their game. He finds somebody's weakness and he makes them think about it. He makes Marco Rubio be strange. He makes Ted Cruz lose himself. Like these people get on their heels and they don't know how to be. And Walz and Kamala are not giving Trump any of that. They are brushing off his attacks, and it is clearly driving him nuts.
Yes. It is driving him nuts. And I like that you say that because I definitely was thinking this morning, like, why can't anyone ever, when it comes time when we're all going to be watching the debate, when that happens, and no one can ever really moderate a debate with Trump because he's so discombobulating. Like, it's so hard to it's so hard to deal with the way he is. It's very difficult for moderators to correct the record and not get involved in all of his bullshit. It was occurring to me today. I'm like, they should not have news people moderate the debates anymore because news people are great. They're so skillful, but it's not a normal person. And they have jobs that they have to think about. Like they have to not get fired from their awesome jobs. But they really should get someone who's kind of unemployed or like halfway employed to moderate the debate, who could just be like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut up. You're lying. Like, no one can do that. And it makes debates so asymmetrical.
I guess the question, I don't really think it matters. And I think that's because in a debate with Donald Trump, whether it's a debate taking place between dueling rallies and Trump saying something inane and terrible in a rally and then the Democratic campaign responding, or a debate that takes place in one room, it's really about what is the most effective way to persuade people seeing this unfold to vote for Kamala Harris. And it's not fact-checking. And it's also not being so offended and taken aback when he makes abhorrent comments about her race or about women. You can do that. It's worth doing. It's worth having people doing that or reminding people how obscene he is. But in the end, there are a lot of people out there who are already pretty well decided that Donald Trump sucks. And most of those people have decided they're not voting for him. Some of them are deciding whether or not to vote at all. Some of them are still on the fence about whether or not they could sort of suffer through a few more years of Trump's nonsense because they retain some notion that because he comes from business and because the pandemic is a unique event that they don't lay at his feet, that he was good for the economy. It's been baked in from the day he came down the escalator. And how do you persuade those people? And it is not about fact-checking Trump or being offended by Trump. It's about being annoyed by Trump. Like, aren't you sick of this? Aren't you exhausted by this endless complaining and whining? You make him small and embarrassing, which is what the Harris campaign has been doing so well. And the moderator actually can't do that. The candidate has to do that. That's not the moderator's job. You have to make him seem small and embarrassing. Maybe it's by saying he's not telling the truth. I mean, look, after that first debate, Joe Biden kept going out there and saying he lied 26 times. He lied 26 times. It doesn't seem to matter. Wish it did. Wish it did. But
you were not shy about thinking that Biden should not continue running for re-election. I was not shy about it. Like, we were all talking about it. Are you surprised that it actually happened? Were you shocked? I honestly opened up X and was like, this is fake. This is AI.
When we were watching the debate, I was watching it with my fellow hosts, with John and Tommy and Dan and a few of our producers. And at first it was confusing and shocking. Then it became terrifying. And then at a certain point, it became clear that this was such a hinge point, that this was such an unfortunate debate performance that we would have no choice but to have a conversation about whether or not he could be the nominee. Going into the debate, there really were three options. One, he performs like he did at the State of the Union, and everyone's like, we're in for Joe, let's go.
Yeah.
The most likely was actually one where he kind of muddled through.
Right.
But what we got instead forced us to have the conversation. And as we were getting closer and closer to this convention, I would never have said it out loud because everyone was so sure it was unlikely. I really did believe that in Joe Biden's patriotism, very earnest. You can call me a neolib, cringe shill, whatever. But I believe in Joe Biden's patriotism. I also think he has an ego, as all people do. I am sure he was enraged. I'm sure he was defiant. We know that. But at root, I believed the conversation was worth happening because I believed he genuinely wanted to defeat Trump. That's why he ran. That's why he was running again. And it was so impossible for me to imagine going into this convention without having made a change that I had this little candle and it was lit and I thought he would do the right thing.
You did.
I really did.
I was shocked. Having been having had elderly relatives, predecease me, I just felt like it's very hard to change the mind of an older person who feels very strongly about something. It's very, very difficult. So I kind of thought that we would be in a much different position this week, just in a real different kind of struggle.
And by the way, like now that we have Kamala leading the ticket, it's still a toss-up race.
I know.
It really is. And that's just obviously like so hard to be like, but God, why? But it is.
I know.
It is. It is. And we can lament it, but it is. And so this was a toss-up race that leaned Trump before the debate. It is now a toss-up race that leans Democrat out of this convention, most likely. It's still a toss-up. We were actually too dour before, and I'm a little worried about irrational exuberance now. Poll came out. By the time you heard this, a whole bunch more. Some of them really, really kind of hopeful. Some of them make you wonder, hold on a second. These numbers seem a little too rosy. Or hold on a second, if it's this close in Virginia, things can't be that good in Wisconsin, right? There are signs everywhere pointing us towards uncertainty, towards believing this thing really will come down to what happened in 2020 and 2016, which is a few thousand votes, literally dozens of votes per precinct, right? Just a dozen votes per precinct, just like really, really small numbers, really individuals making calls to friends really mattering. So we just have to stay just vigilant.
Vigilant and offer rides to voting. Like, I feel like I'm just going to drive seniors.
You should be driving seniors, and that's content. And that's inspiring other people to drive seniors.
Right. It feels like the single greatest thing you can do is get people to the place and wait for them and give them a lift home. I don't know. I mean, the polls. I mean, my God, what do we do with them between now and the election? Because I'm addicted to them. And when they're good, they're good. When they're bad, they're terrifying. I don't think any of it's healthy.
We should assume that we're 1,000 votes under in every swing state. And this is I'm going to plug. If you go to votesaveamerica.com and sign up now, wherever you are, whatever your level of engagement, we will point you to the most effective ways that you can help. Right now, we're trying to get 100,000 people signed up. That number is the number of people that will help turn out people that might not vote or need to be persuaded or are right now undecided. You can call them, you can knock on their door, you can text them. We'll make it easy for you. Please sign up. VoteSaveAmerica.com.
And this is also the substance of your book, partially, because you put out a book, Democracy or Else. And is that like a primer for people?
Yes. So we wrote this book called Democracy or Else. Basically, it's 10 steps that each person can take to protect democracy. The 10th is becoming president. So, some of them are harder than others. Sure. But I'm really proud of it because it's genuinely useful. And I think there's a lot of very funny, cynical people. And then there's a lot of very earnest, engaged, optimistic people. And sometimes the cynical, funny people are talking about how nothing matters. And sometimes the earnest people are always kind of writing their own version of the Federalist Papers. They're always crossing the Delaware. It's a lot of high dudgeon. And what I'm really proud of is in this book, it's funny without being cynical. Oh, and also I should say all the proceeds from the book, there's a legal way I'm supposed to say it. The profits from the book, I don't know. We're not making any money on the book. We're giving the money to Vote Save America so that can help. We have a program called the Anxiety Relief Fund, which every month gives money to organizations on the ground registering and organizing voters. It supports the volunteer campaign. So just if you go to votesaveamerica.com, you can learn more about it. But please stop scrolling all day. It doesn't do anything. You really will feel better if you just devote a little bit of time to being actually part of the fight. It's good for the world, but it just feels good.
I do feel like there were, because, we've all been doing these calls, like big Zoom calls with all these people, and the majority of the questions, and it's like thousands of people are on the call, and the majority of the questions in the chat are, what do I do? Tell me what to do.
Yeah. I would say this, stop asking. Go to votesaveamerica.com or go to the campaign. And I think that everybody needs to just try. I think people also, it's I've never done it before. I've never knocked on doors. I've never made calls. I've never canvassed, whatever it may be. Just do it once.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. And you'll quickly find that I think it was easier than you thought. Sometimes somebody will close the door in your face. That's happened to me.
Yeah.
But so what?
It's okay. People hang up on you.
Stiffens the spine. They do.
You do. I have phone banked lots. When you phone, once you just have to break the seal. You just have to do the thing that's hard, one or two times, and then you go, oh, it's fine. And also, no one's going to hurt me. They're just hanging up or they're just slamming the door. It's normal. I was just talking to Simone Sanders about how much the Harris-Walz campaign is embracing social media and how good they are at it. But TikTok is not the voting booth. It's not the same. Do you think that kind of engagement is really going to translate to people voting? How many 18-year-olds do you think are going to try to vote by text and then realize that they can't?
First of all, this is a game of inches. I think it matters. I'm old and I'm not trying to seem young, but I want to as I get older, trying to understand the difference between remaining curious and engaged and trying to seem young, and the difference between not being swayed by trends and remembering my increasingly lengthy life experience and then not seeming old, not becoming stuck in my ways, right? It's just the challenge. And for me, it's been really, I'm interested in how this conversation, not between millennials and Gen Z or Gen X and Gen Z, but the intra-Gen Z conversation is unfolding. Right. And I saw it a bit in the last couple of years around work. Millennials were the first generation to be online, and millennials are also the first generation that were young and became old on the internet.
All right.
And so Gen Z is watching the things that that millennials did become old, and become cringe, which is another word of just like, getting older and doing things that aren't as cool as they used to be.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think millennials did by becoming the first generation to be online is to try to perform perfection, right? Like Pinterest boards and perfect Instagram lives and vacations, and putting a version of yourself into the world that is kind of perfect. That's what it meant to be overexposed. And that carried over into how millennials worked professionally, right? Like, you don't bring your problems to work, you hide them, you're a pro, you hustle, you make it. And I think Gen Z has reacted to that in a bunch of different ways, and one of which is say, like, no, like, I'm going to bring my whole self to work. I'm going to not be a professional if I'm having a mental health crisis. I'm not going to pretend I want to be here when I don't want to be here. I'm not going to hustle if I don't think that there's a future in this country where I can buy a house and have the success that you had or my parents had. But then what you saw is a kind of, I don't know, like a conversation that was like, well, you know what? Maybe previous generations were too afraid to be honest about their vulnerabilities. But maybe also there's something to be learned about being able to kind of show grit and power through your vulnerabilities sometimes. Like, maybe there's a place to meet in the middle. On politics, there was a lot of very strident, anti-democratic politics that basically said, like, these people aren't for you. This process isn't for you. We need to be organizing outside of the electoral system. That Democrats are bad and Republicans are bad, and plenty of people defying that. But I think that there was a sort of a cynicism around politics. And when it switched from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris, all of a sudden you saw a similar kind of nuance inside of this debate that basically said, hold on a second, like, we all have valid criticisms of Democrats. Many of us are deeply angry and frustrated with the Democratic position and the Joe Biden position on Israel and Gaza. But we have to save ourselves right now, right? Like, we all want to take this boat across the sea, but right now it's sinking.
Right.
And we can all row as hard as we want, but it won't matter if the boat sinks. So right now, we're going to bail out the boat. And there are still people that are arguing about whether or not they want to support Kamala Harris, whether or not Kamala Harris has earned their vote. But a big collective conversation about the importance of some pragmatism in politics, about what it actually means to be left, that you show up and you stop the fascist, and then you keep organizing and you keep pressuring. You vote for Kamala Harris in November, and then you protest Kamala Harris in January.
Right.
Like, do I know if that's going to make a huge difference? I have no idea. It's really genuinely moving, because what it is a bunch of young people on the left waking up to being honest with each other about the danger Donald Trump poses, and not millennials or their parents or older people coming in and trying to persuade them, but young people trying to persuade each other. And I hope it matters. I think it could.
Oh, I hope it matters. I really hope it matters. I try to persuade them, and they don't listen to me at all. Nobody gives a shit what I say.
I think one of the most frustrating aspects of participating in politics over the last decade, I think it is what makes a lot of us feel angry and frustrated and confused about our country, is it feels like we are desperate to persuade millions of people to a position that we view as blitheringly obvious. That Donald Trump is a threat and he has to be stopped. And once he's stopped, once we have broken the back of this fascistic, authoritarian, radical right, once we show the country and the Republican Party that this style of politics is a failure once and for all, and they decide to moderate or disregard this sort of heinous period, once they start to do that work, we can get back to the infighting. We could get back to a less like good versus evil style of politics. But right now there is a threat. it is real. And the challenge of getting people to see it, it does feel a little bit like a dream where you're shouting and you're shouting and you're shouting and nobody can hear your voice.
Yes.
And that's enervating and dispiriting for people. And I get that, but that's why we gotta have fun and make fun of Trump and make the most of it, because it's extremely frustrating.
It's extremely frustrating. And I feel like ever since, the beginning of my career in political satire, whatever, what have you, for me, it was always undecided voters. Like I felt every election that I was like, the choice is so clear. I literally can't understand how you cannot see such a deep contrast between these two people. Like, how can you be in the middle going, I don't know. Let me think a little harder. Can you please spend more hundreds of millions of dollars just to convince me, one of like 100,000 odd people or whatever the number is of people who are just like, not sure yet.
Yeah. No, I know. But that's it. It's politics.
Yeah, that's it. Do you think that, because I do think that it's such a whirlwind and it's such a truncated period of time, which is really what other countries do. They have limited times, what they call an election. They have a limited time period in which to campaign. It's lovely as a person who grew up in Canada. That's what they do there. It is very hard to live in a place where campaigning takes 2 years, and it never really seems to stop. Is there a way for this to be the new normal? Probably. The answer is no. Let me wish upon a star. Let me light a candle for shorter election seasons.
It would be nice, wouldn't it, to have a much shorter election season. The amount of money that candidates have to raise, make things push earlier. But then you see in a moment like this that the enthusiasm and the tight timeline made everybody kind of dig deep and donate a huge amount of money very quickly. The primary dates have like slowly creeped up. Yeah, maybe it would be better if they were later, and maybe if people could announce later. Even Joe Biden, right? Like there was a whole like everyone's like, oh wow, it's so great how short this campaign is. There were a lot of people saying, hey, like President Biden, like you need to start campaigning now. Where are you? Where are you? In January of this year, there was news cycles about how the campaign was getting off to too slow a start. And President Biden, I think instinctively wanted to wait as long as possible because he believed that his most valuable role and like political position was not as a partisan figure, but as president, as a president doing his job. But then Trump had the stage all to himself and was campaigning and hogging the spotlight. So I don't know the answer. Yes, it would be great if we had really short, condensed elections, but I don't know. The incentives seem to push it earlier and earlier.
I know. Would you ever go back to an administration, or do you prefer to be on the outside looking in?
Look, I think that I've built up an archive of takes that has made me unhireable.
Unhireable,
and that was the goal. I don't know. I probably not. I'm not civilized anymore. I've gone feral. The idea of like waking up and putting on a suit and going to an office, it just seems like, I don't know. It seems like dressing up a dog in a suit. Like I just don't, like it's like, yeah, like I'm in a suit, but like I might pee on the carpet. You don't want me in a meeting, like an actual meeting. Imagine me having I can't have a boss. Like I was barely manageable when I was in my 20s and desperate for approval and success. Now, who's going to tell me what to do?
You're going to Hulk out and rip your sleeves off. You've been on Survivor, goddammit.
I've been on Survivor.
Come on. Would you can you turn your brain off? Like when you watch speeches and stuff like that, are you like, well, I'm going to rewrite that. I got to dissect that. You obviously want to edit. You want to do some edits.
Yeah, no, always. Look, I listen, I don't know about you, but I genuinely believe there's not a creative project on earth that wouldn't benefit from my notes. I just think everything should just kind of run through me. Like I just have little tweaks, I'm not going to pull a thread. But just let me get in there for a few minutes. Just let me get in there. Let me give you some notes. As a favor to you, Chris Nolan.
You don't have to pay me necessarily. It's better if you do.
And you should. But
you should.
But why don't we? The first one's free, and then you'll realize how valuable it was to get my notes.
I'm a collaborator.
Yeah,
I just collaborate.
Mr. Quaron.
Are you good at making decisions for yourself? It seems like you were so definitive about your decision to, so thoughtful and definitive about pursuing. I'm sorry, I'm a little upset. I'm not going to be obsessed with the fact that you're on Survivor, but I will watch the hell out of it. I can't wait.
I feel like it was impulsive. Was it decisive? Sure, but it starts by being impulsive. But then once I got into it, I got like really excited about it. So getting on the show is a very lengthy process. It wasn't like I just made a video.
Yeah.
I just made a video and submitted it. There's no like special, podcast host side channel to get onto the thing. I just went through the whole process. I think that like I have a sale, I come from salespeople. My family they're salespeople. And, you start telling a story and really you're selling yourself. And so I started imagining what I would say to get on Survivor. And then I started really believing it.
Do you like making big decisions for yourself? Do you dither? Do you?
The smaller the decision, the harder I will prevaricate, I guess would be the word. Like I need to buy a dresser. And I have, right now I'm looking up at this thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tabs open.
Oh my God.
Of possible dressers. But big decisions, I can be I think it's part of what I bring as like a host, which is I have, the passion will carry me. And so if I wanted to be a speechwriter and there was no deliberation about what path I wanted to take. I really never, I saw The West Wing and I thought I want to be a speechwriter. And I really just never considered, I applied to law school and all these things, but speechwriter was this sort of,
like a North
Star that I was heading towards, and I fought like hell to get there. And then I wanted to be. I remember I was in politics, and I had now had this amazing job, that I had wanted, and it happened faster than I could have hoped. And then all of a sudden, I find after 6 or 7 years of being a speechwriter, that now I'm like kind of fantasizing about doing stand-up, writing comedy, like really focusing on that part of what I love to do, because I never got the chance outside of like writing jokes for politicians. And then I sort of became intensely focused on that. And then after do that for a bunch of years, and then we start this podcast as a hobby, Trump wins, and John, Tommy, and I are driving to do our next day podcast that we assumed would be about Hillary winning. And we're driving to the studio. My car actually runs out of gas. We push it to the side because I was completely beside myself and totally forgot. And we start talking about this idea of a media company, and we never really moved off of it. I never imagined once the idea was there, it was felt so right that it was within days we were planning it. Within weeks we had launched it.
I'm amazed that you have 11 tabs open for dressers. You know what I mean? Often you can be so clear about certain types of decisions and so foggy about others. I'm so good at picking dressers for other people.
Oh, I'll send you some options.
Please send me some options, because I'm going to choose for you. I'm going to do a really good job for you.
Thank you.
I can't do a good job for myself, but I'm great at other people's decisions. I'm better at other people's decisions than my own. Are you like that?
I feel like we all are, because we're, it's because our ego isn't involved, and ego is the reason we are bad at making decisions. We can't step out of it. And so without that, the only parts of you you're using to make the decision are the good parts.
The good parts, the best parts. All the other stuff falls away. Oh my God. Okay, well, have a great time in Chicago. What does the rest of the week look like for you?
I've already eaten one deep dish pizza. I haven't had a Chicago hot dog, because it's like, ugh.
Oh.
I just think once you have a Chicago hot dog, it's like you're having it for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? It just lives with you. It stays with you.
Oh, it lives with you. It stays with you. It's, you know what I mean? Have 2 Chicago hot dogs and then don't eat for 3 days, and you'll be fine. Not another bite.
But I love a food town. I gotta get an Italian beef sandwich. LA is a sweatpants town, but it's not a sandwich town.
Okay.
New York is a sandwich town, but it's not a sweatpants town.
Right.
Philly and Chicago are sweatpants towns and sandwich towns. But Chicago is kind and Philly is mean. And so it's one of our two great sandwich towns that allow sweatpants all the time. But in Chicago, God, people are in a good mood.
Everybody's in a
Philly,
good mood.
they're furious.
They're furious. They're beating up the friendship robot.
Yeah, they're
throwing him in a
greasing up
ditch.
light poles. And Philly's got one of my favorite sandwiches on earth, but my God, it's like, Philly, what happened here? Why is everyone so mean?
I feel so good when I'm in Chicago and I can't even, I'm like, I guess I should live here. I have a smile on my face the entire time, anytime I'm in Chicago. So I'm jealous that you're there because I love it.
And Boston, they're just as rude as they are in Philly, but no sweats, no sandwiches, which is why at least that explains it. Like Philly, you got these great sandwiches. Why are you in such a bad mood all the time? Boston, I get it. You're basically in the tundra. Mm-hmm. You're surrounded by all these college kids. The roads are too narrow. The cobblestones are silly. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. Your bones are creaking from all the salt. Mm-hmm. It's not possible to have a good time. Mm-mm. Chicago is golden. Well, listen, thank you for taking time out of your very, very stacked schedule to talk to me. This was
Thanks for having me.
That was Jon Lovett, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. We talked about our love-hate relationship with political polling, so I had to check when polling even began. Turns out the first record of a political poll was in 1824. The ghost of Nate Silver had Andrew Jackson over John Quincy Adams by 335 votes to 169. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee. See you next week for some more Choice Words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Svea Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.